complexity of information that controls the development of a body plan is staggering, and its location in the cell stands as perhaps the ultimate challenge to the neo-Darwinian scenario of random mutation and natural selection.
We know that much of this higher-level information that's required for building new tissues and organs and body plans isn't found in DNA. That means that you can mutate DNA indefinitely without respect to probabilistic limits, without respect to time and number of trials, and you're never going to get the kind of form and structure you need to build a new organism. DNA is simply the wrong tool for the job, and no amount of time is going to overcome that limitation. That has a really devastating implication for the neo-Darwinian mechanism.
If the Darwinian mechanism cannot explain the origin of the information necessary to produce the Cambrian animals, is there any other cause that can? For more than 20 years, Stephen Meyer has explored this fundamental mystery. In August 2004, Meyer published several of his conclusions in a peer-reviewed journal affiliated with the Smithsonian Institution. His essay triggered a firestorm of controversy that jeopardized the career of the journal's editor, evolutionary biologist Richard Sternberg. But why did a technical paper on the origin of animal body plans evoke such heated response?
For many people, the problem with my paper was simply the conclusion. I not only argued that the Darwinian mechanism could not explain the origin of the new form and information that arises in the Cambrian, but I also argued that there were critical features of that explosion that pointed to the reality of a designing intelligence in the history of life.
Since his years as a graduate student at Cambridge University, Meyer has worked to develop a scientific case for intelligent design. A case based on a standard method of reasoning used by both Darwin and the famed 19th century geologist Charles Lyell. Lyell insisted that the best explanation for an event in the remote past was a cause known from our experience to produce it. A presently acting cause, one now in operation.
The present is the key to the past. That was Lyell's dictum. It's standard historical scientific methodology. If you're trying to reconstruct what happened in the remote past, we should let our present experience of cause and effect guide our search for the best explanation.
This reasoning helped focus Meyer's conclusions about the origin of information.
The light came on for me because I realized it's not that hard. What you're looking for are causes which are known to produce the kinds of effects you're trying to explain. I asked myself the question, what is the cause now in operation that produces new information, whether it's digital code or whether it's hierarchical information in the form of a blueprint? Where does that kind of information come from? Well, we know from our experience, from our uniform and repeated experience, which is the basis of all scientific reasoning about the past, that information always comes from an intelligent source. So when we find information in the Cambrian animals, when we realize that large infusions of new information are required to build those animals, the most natural thing, the most logical thing to conclude is that those animals owe their origin to an intelligent source, that the information required to build them, in turn, must have come from an intelligence. As I've reflected on this over the years, I've realized that the same reasoning that applies to the origin of biological information also applies to the origin of the other key features of the Cambrian explosion.
The sudden top-down appearance of the phyla during the Cambrian explosion defies the simple to complex pattern of development that Darwin predicted.
In Darwin's picture, you'd have little differences accumulating to big differences. The top-down picture turns that on its head.
You find first you get new phyla, and then you have some variations on those themes over time. But the new form, the big differences, appear right from the beginning in the fossil record. If you consider the possibility of design, you realize that that pattern makes perfect sense, because we see in our own history of technology this same pattern of top-down appearance in new forms.
You're always working from your high-level objective to your details in order to accomplish the high-level objective.
Only intelligence can visualize a complex endpoint and bring together everything that's needed to actualize that endpoint.
The body designs evident in the Cambrian animals have continued to appear in different species throughout the history of life. Yet though these species share common body plans, they are not connected by a continuous line of intermediate material forms.
The continuity that explains that consistency of form through time is the continuity of an idea. So when we see in the fossil record the same basic idea popping up over and over again, that suggests that a mind has played a role in the origin of that form, of that body plan organization.
Design systems also display another distinctive feature. They are comprised of a network of complex and precisely organized component parts.
You could speak of these in terms of a nested hierarchy. You have the very high level parameters that specify the whole project goal. Below that, you have layers and layers of more detailed parameters that are needed in order to complete the whole project.
As an example, resistors, capacitors, and transistors are each made from specifically arranged materials. These components are then assembled to form integrated circuits. Circuits are arranged to build computers that are then arranged into networks of computers.
So at each level there is a specificity of arrangement that's provided in turn by the intelligent designer, the engineer, that keeps the whole system working. Well, what you have in biology is something very similar.
In living systems, genes code for proteins, which are organized to form distinctive cell types, which are arranged to form tissues and organs, which are assembled into body plans, including the plans that arose during the Cambrian explosion.
We know of only one cause in the entire universe that can produce that kind of hierarchical arrangement of form and structure and information, and that cause is intelligence. This is the kind of thing that minds do, but natural undirected processes don't.
Evolution works very slowly, as Darwin saw it, with lots of failed experiments along the way. And one would expect that over millions of years, as sediment is being deposited, that you would capture some of those experiments, some of those linking groups leading to the trilobites that he knew all about.
So the absence of those forms is profoundly mysterious. But from the standpoint of intelligent design, it's not mysterious at all, because we know that intelligent agents can bring things into existence that didn't exist before because they had an idea. They had a blueprint in their minds that they realized in their creative activity. There's no need to tinker through millions of years of evolutionary history if you can actualize a plan at a discrete moment in time. And that's exactly what appears to have occurred in the Cambrian explosion.
If numerous species belonging to the same genera or families have really started into life all at once, the fact would be fatal to the theory of descent with slow modification through natural selection.
No aspect of the natural world troubled Charles Darwin more than the Cambrian fossil record and the explosion of life it revealed. Today, many of the details of this remarkable chapter in the history of life still await resolution. Yet modern paleontology, genetics, and embryology have cast new light upon the Cambrian mystery and the origin of complex life on Earth.
If you have very different forms of life that appear in a very short and a very brief time period with respect to the Earth's history, it certainly has the appearance that design problems were solved, and that they were solved elegantly, and that they were solved in very many instances.
When these forms appeared, it wasn't just one or two rickety, hanging on the edge forms. It was a panoply, a manifold of different body types. It does have an explanation if you regard, in addition to matter and energy in the universe, information as being just as important, if not more important. And that is where I think intelligent design theory comes into play.